The void of space was alive with flickering storms, nebula clouds twisting like molten smoke, and distant stars pricking the darkness with cold light. On the bridge of the Vakari flagship, Obsidian Talon, Queen Thalera's eyes glowed like twin suns, scanning the holomaps projected before her. Every sector, every planet, every hidden asteroid belt had been searched, but the trace of her daughters remained stubbornly absent. Her daughters, elite warriors, bred from the fiercest bloodlines of the galaxy, knew their names. Fear whispered them in every starport, every fleet, every shadowed alley. And yet, here they were, missing. A warning tone echoed across the bridge. A blinking signal indicated the last known sensor, trace a small, human vessel on the fringe of uncharted space. A human ship. Thalera's jaw tightened. Humans were fragile, disorganized, a curiosity at best, and an annoyance at worst. They could not possibly be responsible for her daughter's disappearance, could they? The storm outside intensified, arcs of plasma cracking across the nebula like celestial lightning. The ship trembled as energy readings spiked. Thalera's claws rapped on the console, sending sparks scattering across the polished surface. "Bring it up," she demanded. Her voice was low, measured, but carried the weight of a predator poised to strike. A holographic projection flickered to life, displaying a tiny vessel, its hull surprisingly clean, orbiting a jagged storm-lashed planet. Sensors showed no signs of struggle, no warp signatures, no weapons discharge, no warning of an invasion. And yet, her daughters had been there, vanished without trace. "How?" muttered Commander Vresh, her second in command, scales bristling. In unease. No force field? No capture protocols? Nothing. The ship is human. Thalera's gaze sharpened. The corner of her mouth twitched, almost imperceptibly. Humans were weak, but something about this anomaly made her claws itch for action. Perhaps it was audacity? Perhaps it was curiosity? Perhaps it was the faintest whisper of a warning from her instincts. The same instincts that had kept her alive through countless battles. She turned sharply, her tail sweeping across the deck with precise force. "Prepare the fleet. Full scan. Lock all exits. This human will not escape." Her words left no room for argument. Outside, the storms raged as if responding to her fury. Plasma storms danced across the planet's surface, reflecting in the metal of her fleet like molten mirrors. Energy pulses from her ships lit the dark expanse, forming jagged lines of intent toward the tiny human vessel. And yet, even as her fleet advanced, a small, nagging thought crept into her mind. What if these humans were not like the others? What if her daughters, her pride, her legacy had been drawn to them willingly? Thalara clenched her jaw. No, impossible. Vakari do not bow. Vakari do not submit. Her daughters would fight, resist, and die before they would choose a human. And if they had? The thought made her claws twitch. The thought made the bridge tremble, not from the storms, not from the fleet, but from anticipation. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing on the flickering holoprojection. "Find them," she ordered, voice sharp as shattered glass. "Every star, every shadow, every corner of this galaxy. And when you do, bring them to me." A spark of movement flickered on one of the screens, an anomaly. A tiny blip, almost lost in the storm of energy readings. Thalera's eyes widened, a predator recognizing prey. This was no ordinary human ship. Something inside it, something alive, was calling to her daughters, and she would not rest until she uncovered it. The horizon's edge weaved between jagged asteroids like a ribbon of silver through black glass. Lieutenant Cade Wren's hands moved over the controls with the precision of a seasoned pilot, his eyes scanning the shifting field of debris reflected on the cockpit's panoramic screen. Lightning from a distant storm streaked across the asteroid belt, illuminating the tiny human vessel as if spotlighting it for some unseen audience. Inside the ship, suspended in quiet glowing pods, were the Vakari daughters. Their alien forms were still, almost serene, their scales catching faint light like shards of crystal. Cade studied them carefully, heart hammering with both awe and disbelief. Each one was a legend in the galaxy, a warrior bred for battle, unmatched in skill and ferocity. And yet, here they were, asleep and unarmed, their incredible power vulnerable and unknowable. A warning tone broke the silence. Sensors detected energy spikes and orbit a massive fleet, moving with deliberate intent. Cade froze, eyes narrowing. The readings were impossible. He had expected patrol drones, maybe an automated strike, but not a full Vakari war fleet. The human brain processed the numbers slowly, the absurdity striking him. Hundreds of ships, each larger than anything Earth had ever built, converging on this storm-torn planet. He exhaled sharply and activated the ship's stealth field, a flickering shimmer cloaking the horizon's edge from visual detection. The storm outside aided him, lightning arcs masking the energy signature of his vessel. Yet, even as he calculated his odds, a gnawing fear remained. These were no ordinary aliens. They were predators, apex hunters of the galaxy, and somehow, his ship had become the cage for their kin. Lieutenant Wren, came the calm but firm voice of his AI companion. Vega, energy readings confirm multiple advanced warp signatures approaching. Probability of detection is 72%. Recommend evasive maneuvers. Cade nodded, adjusting the flight path to follow the planet's fractured surface. Lightning illuminated the chasms and towering cliffs below, revealing the violent beauty of the world they had landed upon. Storm winds tore across the craggy terrain, sending columns of debris into the atmosphere. Cade's mind raced. If the Vakari fleet descended here, the planet itself could become their weapon. He glanced at the pods again. The daughter's breathing was steady, almost unnervingly calm, as if the storm around them had no power over their consciousness. He wondered, had they trusted him? Could aliens, bred to fight and dominate, ever feel the strange pull of respect or curiosity toward a human? A sudden tremor shook the ship. Cade's hand snapped to the controls as he dodged a lightning strike that danced dangerously close to the hull. Sparks flew across the console, and for a heartbeat, the vessel seemed suspended between survival and catastrophe. Outside the Vakari fleet's shadows stretched across the storm clouds, massive warships like jagged mountains suspended in the sky. Cade's chest tightened. The Queen herself could be among them, and if she were, he took a deep breath. There was no time to think in hypotheticals. Only action mattered. The human mind, he reminded himself, was unpredictable in ways the Vakari could not calculate. They might see him as weak, but humans had survived against impossible odds before, and today, he would prove it again. He set a new course, diving toward a series of jagged cliffs, using the storm's turbulence to mask his approach. Each maneuver was a gamble. One miscalculation could end in obliteration, but he felt a strange confidence, born not from power, but from creativity, the human advantage. Somewhere above the storms, in orbit, the Queen's fleet advanced, unaware that a single human pilot held the fate of her daughters in his hands. And in the glowing pods, the Vakari slept, unknowingly trusting the very being their mother considered weak. Cade tightened his grip on the controls. The game had begun and the humans were ready to play. The stars themselves seemed to retreat before the obsidian talon, Queen Thalera's flagship, as it cut through the void with predator-like precision. The nebula around them writhed in violet and crimson swirls, reflecting the Queen's searing fury. Every scale on her arms bristled as the sensors confirmed the impossible. The human ship was still intact. Not a scratch, not a warning, and somehow, it held her daughters. "Where are they hiding?" Thalera hissed, claws raking across the console. Sparks arced where her grip struck the metal, tiny explosions that mirrored her temper. Her second-in-command, Commander Vresh, trembled beside her, scales glinting under the red glow of the control panels. They are in orbit around the storm-torn planet, Your Majesty. No weapons discharged, no force fields deployed. It is human, Vresh said, voice tight. Thalera's eyes narrowed. Human. The word was almost laughable. Fragile, disorganized, weak. And yet, they had drawn her daughters from the reaches of space, with no resistance at all. Something about that irritated her more than a direct attack ever could. Outside the viewport, her fleet spread like a predatory web across the black sky. Thousands of warships, massive and angular, hummed with energy, their shadows stretching across the storm clouds below, like jagged mountains poised to strike. Plasma cannons glowed ominously, ready to ignite. The storms beneath them were furious, lightning tearing across jagged cliffs, reflecting off the metal hulls, as if the universe itself had joined in her wrath. Thalara leaned forward, her tail lashing behind her. Prepare for orbit descent. Lock on every exit point. We will not allow this human to escape. Her command was executed with flawless precision. Lights blinked across the bridge as her fleet spread out, warships forming. Grids of inevitability. Yet something deep in her instincts, the same instincts that had kept her alive through countless wars, whispered unease. The human pilot was clever, unpredictable. Probability of successful interception is 95% fresh, murmured, attempting reassurance. Then it will be 96, Thalara replied, her voice low and cutting, like the hiss of a blade through air. But even as she spoke, a flicker of doubt crept in, faint and unwelcome. She focused on the storm-lashed planet below, its cliffs jagged as razors, its rivers of lava glinting in the lightning's flash. The human ship darted across this dangerous terrain, using it to mask its approach. Each movement was precise, deliberate, and how could a species so fragile navigate such hazards without error? A warning light blared on the main console. Her sensors had picked up something, energy fluctuations from the ship's cloaking systems. Thalera's claws twitched. The human was not only surviving, they were anticipating her moves. Her lips curled in a snarl. Clever, very clever. But cleverness will not save them. The queen raised her voice, and it carried across the bridge, reverberating like thunder through the hull. The daughters are mine. Every star, every shadow, every corner of this galaxy will be searched. And when I find them, her tail lashed again, knocking over a hollow projection. They will return, alive, or I will burn this system to ash. The storm below seemed to pulse in response to her fury, as if the planet itself feared the wrath of a Vakari queen. Her fleet closed in, forming an impenetrable web around the human vessel, but she sensed something still, unexpected, something small, almost laughable, a single human, outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Holding her daughter's fate in their hands, Thalera's eyes glinted with both rage and curiosity. Let us see how fragile humans fight when cornered. Let us see if courage can match the fire of a queen. The hunt had begun, and the galaxy would tremble before the consequences. Lightning split the stormy sky above the jagged cliffs of the alien planet, illuminating twisted rock formations and rivers of molten lava that hissed and boiled in the torrential rain. Inside the human vessel Horizon's Edge, a low hum of energy pulsed through the hull as the cryopods housing the Vakari daughters slowly disengaged. Releasing them from their deep slumber, the first to awaken opened her eyes to darkness pierced by flashing lights. Her pupils, slit like twin knives, adjusted to the storm-lit interior of the ship. A faint metallic taste filled the air, mingling with the electricity from the lightning outside. She sat up slowly, muscles taut with instinct. Every sense screamed. Alert, danger, unknown. Beside her, the others stirred. Their movements were fluid, predatory, graceful. Even asleep, they carried the aura of hunters, beings bred for war. but something in the way they were cradled in the pods, the lack of struggle. The precision of the human's care gave them pause. The first daughter scanned the cabin, her gaze finally resting on the human who sat at the control console. Lieutenant Cade Wren. He looked ordinary at first glance, and unarmored, human, but there was a strange calm in his movements, a focus that belied his fragile appearance. His eyes met hers, steady and unwavering, and something inside her shifted. Where are we?" she hissed in Vakari, her voice low, sharp, like a blade. "Safe," Cade replied carefully, his tone neutral but firm. "You're on my ship? No one will harm you here." The second daughter's eyes narrowed. "Safe? You? You dare claim safety while holding us?" Her claws twitched, craving control, dominance, instinctive authority. Cade didn't flinch. "I don't claim dominance. I only act in caution. Outside these walls, your mother's fleet hunts you. Here, you have choices." The third daughter shifted uneasily, listening to the storm thrashing against the hull. Thunder rolled like distant artillery. Lightning illuminated the vessel in sharp, violent flashes, and shadows danced across the daughter's scaled features. Their alien senses flared with instinctual distrust, yet also something unfamiliar: curiosity, respect, perhaps even admiration. Outside, the storm raged with almost theatrical timing, as if the planet itself conspired to test this fragile human against the galaxy's fiercest warriors. The horizon's edge pitched as another lightning strike struck dangerously close, sending sparks across the outer hull. The daughters flinched, then watched in cautious awe as Cade adjusted the controls to stabilize the ship. His movements precise, unhurried, confident. The first daughter finally spoke again, her tone tinged with a reluctant curiosity. "Why have you kept us alive?" Cade's gaze held hers. "Because I can. Because it is right. And because humans survive in ways you cannot predict." The words hung in the charged air, almost unheard over the storm, yet impossible to ignore. The daughters shared a glance, instinct and pride clashing with an unspoken recognition. The human before them was not like any enemy they had faced, not like any predator they had hunted. A distant shadow of the Vakari fleet passed overhead, barely visible through the storm. Sensors picked up massive energy signatures, a reminder that danger was never far, that the Queen herself could descend at any moment. And yet, in the quiet tension of the ship, with the storm thrashing and the lava rivers glowing outside, the daughters felt something that no human should have the power to inspire: the flicker of trust. The first daughter's lips curled slightly, almost imperceptibly. "Perhaps we underestimated them." Cade exhaled slowly, relief tempered with caution. Outside, lightning illuminated the jagged cliffs once more. Somewhere above, the shadows of the Queen's fleet advanced, relentless and vast. But here, in the chaos of storm and steel, a fragile bond had begun. And sometimes, Cade thought, the unexpected is the greatest weapon of all. The ground trembled beneath the horizon's edge as molten rivers hissed and sprayed steam into the stormy air. From orbit above, Queen Thalera's fleet glinted like a constellation of warships, each one massive, angular, and humming with lethal energy. The Queen herself stood at the prow of her flagship, claws drumming against the console, eyes blazing like twin suns. The daughters, her pride, her legacy, were in human hands, and every instinct in her body screamed fury. "Lieutenant Wren." Thalera's voice boomed through the ship's comms, low and dangerous, reverberating through the hull. "You hold my daughters. Return them to me immediately, or I will reduce this planet to ash. Your species is fragile. Do not tempt me to prove it." Cade's hands clenched on the controls, the storm outside rocking the vessel as lightning cracked across the sky. He knew the voice carried more than words. It carried a threat that could level mountains, incinerate cities, and crush the lives of everyone aboard his ship in seconds. But he also knew one thing. Surrender was not an option. Queen Thalara, he replied steadily, voice firm but controlled. Your daughters are under my protection. I will not hand them over while they are in danger. This planet this stormy, my shield and I will use it to defend them. Outside, lightning streaked across jagged cliffs, illuminating rivers of glowing lava that cut through the rocky terrain like veins of fire. The daughters watched, alert and tense, as the human pilot maneuvered the vessel through the tempest with an almost supernatural precision. The storm was a weapon he wielded against their mother's fleet, dodging energy scans, avoiding plasma fire, and using the planet's natural hazards to his advantage. The first daughter, eyes narrowed, hissed under her breath. This human, he is reckless. Or clever, muttered the second, watching as the ship ducked behind a jagged spire of rock, masking its energy signature. From orbit, Thalara's fury built into something almost tangible. Her massive warships formed grids of inevitability, energy weapons charging, ready to strike at the smallest flicker of defiance. Yet every movement the human made seemed calculated, every dodge precise. Fragile as they are, clever as well. How dare they defy me? The Queen's eyes narrowed. This is your final warning, human. Return them, or witness annihilation. I will not tolerate hesitation. Cade's fingers hovered over the emergency thrusters. The vessel's shields hummed, as he prepared for evasive maneuvers, heart racing yet mind clear. He could feel the daughter's gaze on him, an ancient, alien, and powerful. Their trust was fragile as the human ship in this storm, but it was there, and he would not betray it. The storm intensified. Lightning struck closer, the air vibrating with raw energy. Rivers of lava erupted along the cliffs, sending plumes of steam and ash into the sky. The human ship darted between molten flows, its movements almost a dance of survival and strategy. Thalara's voice pierced again. Your time is up. Make a choice, human, or I will make it for you. Cade exhaled slowly, determination hardening in his chest. Then let's see who teaches whom about courage, he said. He tilted the ship toward a narrow canyon, the walls flaring with reflections from the storm. The daughters instinctively tensed, scales bristling. Every instinct screamed danger but also something else. The Queen's ultimatum hung over them like a blade. Every second counted. Every maneuver could be their last. And yet, in the chaos of storm, fire, and alien wrath, a single human had become the center of a deadly, impossible standoff. Above the tempest, lightning illuminated the Queen's fleet, their shadows massive and foreboding. Below, the human pilot and his unlikely wards prepared to face the ultimate test, not with overwhelming force, but with courage, cunning, and the fragile brilliance that defined humanity. Lightning split the sky like the universe itself was tearing apart. Jagged cliffs glistened with rain and molten lava, each strike revealing the full fury of the storm-tossed planet. Below, the horizon's edge darted like a silver shard, weaving through the chaos as though guided by instinct itself. Lieutenant Cade Wren gritted his teeth, knowing that outside the fragile hull of his vessel, the Vakari fleet, massive, merciless, relentless, was closing in. Evasive patterns engaged. Cade murmured, fingers dancing over the controls. Sensors lit up with warnings, plasma pulses from orbiting warships, energy shields flickering, and the unstable magnetic field of the storm threatening to scramble navigation. Every movement was a gamble, every second a test of life against annihilation. Above him, the shadows of the Queen's fleet stretched like a predator's claws across the stormy sky. Their massive energy weapons glinted, ready to strike with devastating precision. And yet, Cade didn't panic. Humans were fragile, yes, but they were unpredictable, creative, willing to gamble in ways the Vakari could not anticipate. Vega, he called, voice steady. Initiate terrain interference protocol. Use storm currents, magnetic anomalies, and lava flows to our advantage. A low hum filled the ship as the AI complied. Lightning strikes were amplified to blind enemy sensors. The planet's magnetic turbulence warped energy readings, sending the Vakari fleet chasing phantom signals. Molten rivers reflected and scattered targeting lasers, forcing the warships to adjust constantly. Cade moved with a rhythm that seemed almost impossible for a single human, dodging, weaving, and using the storm itself as a shield. The daughters, awake and alert now, watched from the observation deck. Their scaled faces reflected a mix of awe and incredulity. The human pilot maneuvered as though he could predict the planet's violent whims before they happened. Their training, their instincts, screamed at them to intervene, but every movement Cade made was precise, deliberate, and effective. He is controlling the storm itself, whispered one daughter, her voice barely audible over the roar of thunder, or he's reading it like a map. Another replied, scales glinting in the reflected lightning. Their confidence in his abilities was growing, begrudging respect, forming in the space where instinct had first demanded suspicion. Outside, the Vakari fleet faltered. Massive ships struggled to adjust to the unpredictable environment. Plasma weapons overshot their targets, sensors scrambled by shifting magnetic fields, and energy shields misfired against the storm's interference. The Queen's patience began to fray, her gaze narrowing from the bridge of the obsidian talon. This human, how Thalara hissed. Fury and disbelief warred in her mind. The species she had deemed weak was not only surviving, they were thriving against overwhelming force. Cade tilted the horizon's edge, narrowly slipping through a collapsing canyon as molten rock rained down like fiery hail. The daughters gasped, instinctively reaching out to stabilize themselves, but the human had it under control. Each maneuver was a dance of survival, a display of ingenuity, a lesson in the unexpected. And then came the narrowest pass, jagged spires on either side, lightning illuminating the corridor like a cathedral of fire. Cade's hands flew over the controls, engines straining, shields flickering. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. One wrong move, and the ship would be obliterated. But he pushed forward, confident, unflinching. The Vakari fleet hesitated, their own calculations failing in the chaos. One by one, ships had to retreat or risk collision with the storm-lashed cliffs. The human, against all odds, was holding the balance of the fight. Inside the observation deck, the daughters exchanged a glance, understanding in a silent, shared moment. Strength was not only in power, sometimes intelligence, courage, and creativity could turn the tide even against the fiercest of foes. Cade exhaled, heart pounding, eyes on the next obstacle. Outside, the storm raged on, a wild and beautiful ally. Somewhere above, the Queen's fleet still hovered, watching, but for the first time, she knew she faced more than a fragile species. She faced a mind that could outthink, outmaneuver, and perhaps outlast her. The storm had passed, leaving the planet bathed in an eerie, alien glow. Aurora-like waves of violet, green, and gold rippled across the sky, painting the jagged cliffs and rivers of molten rock in shifting otherworldly colors. The air was still, heavy with the scent of ozone and ash. On the surface, the horizon's edge rested precariously atop a plateau of fractured stone, shields shimmering faintly as they absorbed the lingering heat from nearby lava flows. Inside, the daughters stood side by side, their scales reflecting the shifting light of the aurora above. The human pilot, Lieutenant Cade Wren, sat at the console, quiet but alert. Outside, in orbit, the massive shadows of Queen Thalara's fleet lingered like vultures, waiting, watching. Every instinct in the daughters screamed at them, obey their mother, return to her, or risk her wrath. The first daughter stepped forward, eyes narrowing as she stared out at the horizon. She will not stop, she said, her voice low, like the rumble of distant thunder. She will burn this world to claim us, and yet, we are alive. She cannot force us to stay. The second daughter's gaze softened as it fell on Cade, He is fragile, yet he is fearless. He has held us, protected us, when the strongest forces in the galaxy would have crushed us. There is a power here that does not belong to him, physically, but it is no less formidable. A silence fell, punctuated only by the crackling of distant lightning from storms that had moved beyond the horizon. The daughters exchanged glances, scales bristling, minds racing with a single question: loyalty or freedom, duty or instinct. The Queen's voice had been absolute, unyielding, yet something in Cade's actions, in humanity itself, had challenged that decree. The first daughter turned to Cade, voice soft but wary. "Why do you risk yourself for us? You are not bound to our kind. You are not even like us." Cade's eyes met hers steadily. "Because it is right. Because no one deserves to be used as a pawn, not even a warrior like you. And because humans survive in ways that matter more than strength." The third daughter's tail flicked, brushing against the edge of the observation deck. She had seen armies fall, stars burn, and yet she felt something she had never felt before: respect for this fragile human, awe at his courage, trust that he would not falter. Outside, the Queen's fleet rumbled, impatience radiating even through orbit. Plasma weapons glinted, and massive energy pulses traced across the clouds like molten fingers, demanding obedience. The daughters could hear the unspoken command: return or die. But as the auroras danced above, casting surreal light across the plateau, a decision formed. One by one, the daughters stepped forward, closer to Cade, leaving behind the instinctive fear of their mother's wrath. Their scales glimmered in the shifting light, reflecting not just the auroras, but a quiet, resolute strength born of choice. The first daughter spoke, her voice clear, unwavering. "We will stay, with him, with humans. Not because we defy our mother, but because we choose to." The second nodded, eyes fixed on the human who had proven himself more than they had expected. "We follow the path of respect and trust, not blind command." The third's voice rang like a bell in the quiet ship. "And if she comes for us, we will face her, together." Cade exhaled, tension finally easing, though danger still lingered in orbit above. The auroras shifted, bathing the plateau in colors that felt almost sacred, a cosmic witness to the daughter's choice. For the first time, humans had not just survived, they had earned the loyalty and respect of beings far beyond their comprehension. Somewhere above, Queen Thalera's massive ships lingered, the Queen herself staring down at the plateau. Fury burned in her eyes, but beneath it flickered something unexpected: acknowledgement. Humanity, fragile and defiant, had altered the course of her daughters' lives, and perhaps, for the first time, she understood that power was more than strength. Beneath the alien auroras, a fragile bond had formed, one that even the fiercest queen could not sever. The daughters had chosen not only freedom, but respect, and humanity had proven that courage and ingenuity could carve paths where raw might could not. The sky above the jagged cliffs blazed with shifting auroras, casting violet and gold light across molten rivers and shattered stone. The storm that had once raged in chaos was gone, leaving only the residual tension of a world that had narrowly survived annihilation. From orbit, the shadows of Queen Thalera's fleet hung like thunderclouds, massive and foreboding, but the plateau below held the unexpected truth: her daughters had chosen, and they were not returning. Inside the horizon's edge, Lieutenant Cadran gripped the controls, the ship's hull thrumming with the power of its engines. The daughters stood beside him, their scales glinting in the aurora's light, their postures a mixture of awe and resolve. The Queen's voice had not been heard in hours, but its threat lingered in the silence above. Massive warships hovered, plasma cannons charged, energy pulses tracing through the atmosphere like molten lightning. Thalera's eyes, twin flames of fury and disbelief, scanned the plateau. Her daughters were alive. Sci-fi, and they had made a choice without her sanction. The audacity of it burned hotter than the planet's lava. Cade exhaled slowly. "Hold steady," he murmured. "There, watching. Let's give them something to remember." The horizon's edge surged forward, engines flaring as it pierced the aurora-lit sky. Lightning danced across the jagged cliffs and lava rivers below, reflecting in the ship's hull, creating the illusion of multiple vessels moving at once. Sensors aboard the Vakari flagship faltered. Energy pulses misread, targeting grids scrambled by the interplay of natural and artificial phenomena. The daughters watched, stunned. Even the most powerful Vakari warriors had never witnessed such a blend of human ingenuity and courage. The ship didn't just survive the storm, it became part of it, bending the planet's chaos into a weapon, a shield, and a path to freedom. Thalera's tail lashed, sending sparks across the console. "Impossible," she hissed. Her fleet adjusted, massive warships pivoting in tandem, but the humans' maneuvers continued to outpace their calculations. He was a single pilot of fragile species and, yet, he commanded forces that challenged the very definition of power. Cade guided the vessel through a narrow canyon, the daughters holding on as molten walls rose like guardians. Each twist and turn, each calculated tilt, was a gamble against death, yet every move carried precision and foresight. The Queen's fleet faltered. Massive ships colliding with energy distortions and magnetic turbulence, forced to retreat or risk destruction. Finally, the horizon's edge broke through the canyon's mouth, ascending toward open space. Below, the plateau was quiet, bathed in the aurora's ethereal glow. The daughters exhaled, their scales catching the light, reflecting relief, pride, and respect not just for the human who had saved them, but for the species he represented. Cade looked back at them, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You're safe now," he said. "No one, not even a queen, can take that from you." Somewhere above, Queen Thalera's massive ships hovered, her gaze sharp and unyielding, softened for a moment, betraying grudging acknowledgement. Humanity, fragile and underestimated, had altered the course of her daughters' lives, and in doing so, had carved a new definition of strength, courage, ingenuity, and moral resolve could triumph where power alone failed. The daughters nodded to Cade, their loyalty now a conscious choice rather than imposed command. They had learned that strength was not only measured in combat, but in the courage to choose, to trust, and to act with integrity. As the horizon's edge climbed into the violet-hued nebula, streaks of light racing past like cosmic fire, the Queen withdrew her fleet, leaving the planet and its survivors intact. The human had not only survived, but had reminded the galaxy of something long forgotten, that even the most fragile among them could change the course of history. Beneath the auroras, on a world that had witnessed both fury and ingenuity, humanity had triumphed. And for the Vakari daughters, the lesson was clear. Respect, choice, and courage were forces as unyielding as any weapon, and the human who wielded them had earned their trust forever.